Ward number 1, Leeper.
Here.
Ward number 2, Anderson.
Here.
Ward number 3, McNeil.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing as there are none, is there a motion to approve this agenda? Boots with the first.
Second.
And Anderson with the second.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots? Yes. Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
All right, so now we'll move to the communications portions there, of the meeting. If there's anybody who would like to address the city council, please make your way to the podium and state your name and address for the... Yes, you may.
It's Mary Swan, 1110 Plum Street. I have two questions, actually. Whose idea was it to shut down the public during the meeting? It's under your communications there, that has all changed.
It was more just to keep the meeting running smoothly, since those who come to the meeting are having a conversation with the city council.
Since what?
The guests that come that are on the agenda are up at the podium having a conversation with the city council. Not so much with the general public.
But that isn't what I asked, Brian. I asked why, always before, the public could raise their hand, like during something on the other side. And evidently that isn't happening anymore, is that right?
Yeah, and that's just what I said. When we have guests that come, they're addressing the city council. It's a conversation between the council and whoever is at the podium.
I think it's interesting because I think Larry said he saw it too in the Gazette. Iowa City just changed from what we're going backwards to opening up communication with the public throughout the meeting.
Right.
I think this is very sad. And my other question is, are you reconsidering the vote on the senior center donation?
I have had no feedback. I have not received any feedback from the council to revisit that issue.
Brian, can I respond?
Definitely.
It was addressed to me. You're right, Mrs. Swan. I did say that I don't believe the city should be taking on charitable donations with taxpayer dollars. I think that if an individual has passion for a charitable organization, they should do that on their own. We as a community need to start supporting these things. The city can't be dependent upon to run those. There are a lot of good nonprofit organizations out there. I'm surprised that you're suggesting the five of us make the decisions of where your tax dollar goes. I don't think that's really what you're asking us to do. And in closing, I would say I'm 100% behind the senior center. If we all wrote a little check tomorrow, they'd be in a whole different situation. And I see it coming from the community, not the city.
I think it's interesting in response to that the county supports the senior center to the tune of about $14,000 or $15,000 a year.
I'm not aware of that. I am aware that the other communities are not. And can you give me that?
Mechanicsville and Stanwood.
Mechanicsville, Stanwood gave $750 a year ago. I don't think Mechanicsville did give any. And I'm not going to debate this here with you right now. I just want to respond to your article in the paper. You're welcome.
If there's anybody else, please make your way.
Nope, go ahead.
Larry Hodgson, 210 East 6th Street. A couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone here who signed the petition that I presented last meeting to allow the school board to proceed with a bond vote on the facilities improvement at the school. We did come up with more than enough signatures, and that will be going to a bond vote in February. And I hope all of you take the opportunity to take a look at that proposal and consider the good that it will do for the school system, and hope you have a willingness to come out and support that bond when it comes to voting. So I appreciate that. The other thing I want to talk about is I want to thank Floyd and his crew. After the last meeting, I helped Ross. Ross did most of it. We did check out some lights down there. We found a few that were in real good condition yet, suitable to be put up. Floyd and his crew have been very busy. They took the time right away to get at least the snowflakes up in the downtown area, which is better than nothing. It's awful late in the year to start that. We're about 2 or 3 months late to get the ball rolling on that idea. There are a lot of snowflakes down there that need a lot of work, and obviously I do believe that's not something we should have the electric department doing because it ties up too much of their time. They have a job to do. So I would like to suggest that if Linda Beck would put it on her calendar for next summer and talk to the Chamber of Commerce, we could perhaps get a volunteer group together to start working on those other snowflakes, get them in good shape so we can then get some assistance from the electric department starting early November or when the weather's halfway decent to start putting up additional snowflakes in the downtown area. So all in all, I think that would be a great improvement. Along with the garland that's been put up, I think it's going to make downtown look really good. And I appreciate the work that Linda did for that. And also, might want to say, someone told me today, it was nice to have that, your holiday event that you had on the 10th. What day was that, the 10th? Anyway, someone mentioned that Bob and Keith Whitlatch have been bringing their horses in and providing rides for a long time. And this year, because the streets were a little slick, they were unable to provide rides. But this was going to be the last year they did it. So I would like to thank all of us. Should express a great deal of appreciation for Bob and Keith for all they've done for all these years and the effort they made to try to make it this year even. One additional thing, since how we can no longer address these issues during the council meetings, and often when we come to these events, we don't know what's on unless you've taken the time to look on the website and look at the agenda packet to see what's actually on there. Most of the public isn't aware of what you're going to be deciding tonight. And so I did do that. I noticed that you are talking about tonight approving, moving ahead with using some FAA money to assist in repairing the runway out here. And I think that's a very good idea. I think it's important to keep that runway in good operating condition. Obviously, it appears it's going to need something done to it, and now's a good time to do it, especially if you can make use of the FAA money. Now, I realize it's an expense for the city, but that $20,000 that would cost the city is a whole lot less than it would cost us to build a new airport. A whole lot less. One thing I might make a note is, it seemed to me over a year ago when we were discussing that new airport, one of the arguments was that we couldn't use FAA money for improvements on our existing airport. Now all of a sudden we can use money for improvements, so I'm a little bit confused about that. Maybe I misunderstood it, but I was pretty sure that's what I was told. And that was one of the arguments for going ahead with the new airport, is because we couldn't use FAA money on the old one. So perhaps I was mistaken, but somebody can sure will correct me if I was. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? All right, seeing if there is none, we'll close that portion of the meeting and we'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes 3 items that can be passed with one motion. The city council council minutes from November 30th, city council minutes from December 5th, and the treasurer's investment report. Is there anything that needs to be pulled out to be discussed?
I just would
Yeah.
note in the council minutes, this would be for, on the December 5th minutes, at the top of the third page, the number 3, the amount, the dollar amount, the 23,363, I just need to correct it, just a second, instead of the period, just to clarify.
Okay. So change the count of the period on page 3. All right, well, and with that change, is there a motion to pass the consent agenda?
So moved.
Spear with the first. Boots with the second.
McNeil?
Yes.
Oops.
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Peeper?
All right, then we'll move all the way down to L, which is motions for approval. We'll start out with the Tipton Emergency Medical Systems Performance and Responsibilities Review. And Mr. Ratliff, the ambulance director, if you wouldn't mind making your way to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for your time, as well as thank the visitors that we have this evening for the time and their input. I'm at my 3-month anniversary actually today for the city of Tipton, and I can say that it has been quite the ride, without question. We've had a lot of opportunities to see how things have grown and to look at opportunities for how we can improve things. One of the things that Tim Long had asked me initially when I started here is figure out a baseline and tell us where we need to go. Over the past couple of months, I've been speaking with each of you individually, as well as with this council, on issues that we are having and on ways that we can improve those issues. I think it's a fairly well-known fact at this point we're having difficulty with staffing our calls throughout the week, whether it be on the night shift or on the weekend shifts. I had approached you all about this, and one of the probably most common thing that I've received from everyone is, Brad, we'd like to see the facts, we'd like to see the numbers, and got it. But I also know that nobody likes to hear me talk. So instead of hearing me talk this evening, I invited some subject matter experts to talk to you about this. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker up this evening, Michelle Fisher from Iowa Department of Public Health Bureau of Emergency and Trauma Services is here to begin our conversation. We should have a total of 7 or 8 speakers here this evening. So, thank you, Michelle.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Fisher-Short. I'm the EMS Field Coordinator for the Southeast Region of Iowa with the Iowa Department of Public Health Bureau of Emergency and Trauma Services. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. We're excited to be here. So we wanted to give an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what the responsibilities are of the Bureau of Emergency and Trauma Services and how we function and work with emergency medical services. So with the ambulance services, transport and non-transport services, what we're looking at and what our functionality is as a bureau and underneath the Iowa Department of Public Health. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of information. The responsibilities of the Bureau of Emergency and Trauma Services is to regulate transport and non-transport services as well as air ambulances. There's 927 base ambulances in the state of Iowa. That includes bases and satellites. And we are also responsible for the certification of EMS service providers. There are approximately 12,000 EMS service providers, certified EMS providers in the state of Iowa currently. That includes EMR, EMT, AEMT, as well as paramedics. So my focus, specifically to me, is on the southeast area of Iowa, and Tipton is, I'm lucky enough, this is part of my area. So I've had a great honor to be able to meet with Brad, Merrill Meese, who's here with us tonight too, who's with the Iowa Department of Public Health, and Steve Mercer as well. Have been a great resource for technical assistance for myself and for Brad, as I'm getting to know everybody and getting welcomed into Cedar County and be able to meet with everyone and learn a little bit about how your EMS services work here. So it's been a great honor to be a part of that as well. So in my functionality of focusing on specific EMS services, I kind of wanted to give you an idea of how Tipton specifically, historically, looking at regulatory agents, as a regulatory agent looking at Tipton Ambulance Service specifically, from 2003 to 2014, of how we've, of on-site reviews, when we've come to Tipton Ambulance Service and provided a review of the service specifically. And in that review process, which I'll touch on a little bit more of how the regulations work, we cover everything from administration duties to staffing. So we look at a wide variety of things. There are 43 identified items within our on-site review for a transport service, which Tipton Ambulance is. So we look at all of those items and have an opportunity to provide assistance, to look at the resources that each ambulance service has specifically, and that helps to guide those ambulance services and how they function within the minimum standards that are provided by the state of Iowa. So looking historically at Tipton Ambulance Service, going back to 2003, in reviewing that on-site visit, there weren't any deficiencies noted at that time for Tipton Ambulance. And we move forward to 2007, and there were 8 deficiencies that were noted. And again, take into considerations anything from administrative to staffing and anything in between. So it can include equipment, that sort of thing. In 2010, there were 8 deficiencies noted. And then we move up to 2014, where there were 21 deficiencies noted for Tipton Ambulance Service. And I do have copies of that for any council members that would like to see it as well. So looking back at those deficiencies, how the process works is after each inspection, you do provide a copy of the on-site review report to the service specifically, and it outlines everything that we've looked at. So we've met with them, we've gone through a time shared together where we are going through documents and looking at equipment and the ambulance and having a great conversation, hearing how their processes work, how everything works for them within the community, because every ambulance service is different. Of those 927 that are in the state of Iowa, each of them functions a little differently. So that's kind of the beauty of EMS. So when we're looking through those, when we finish up our on-site, we do provide a on-site review report to the service specifically, so they can see what we saw and what we talked to them about. And identified in there are deficiencies. And if there are deficiencies that are found, we do provide technical assistance on how to resolve those deficiencies and a time frame to resolve them in. And typically that time is 30 days to resolve those deficiencies. And at that time, then a certificate is given to the service, typically for a 3-year certification period. Huge kudos to Tipton Ambulance Service. In that time that they had the 21 deficiencies, they were able to get those deficiencies resolved in under 30 days. And can't say that for a lot of services in the state. So that's a huge kudos to the Tipton Ambulance Service for all their hard work and what they've done. So from that regulatory standpoint, we utilize a set of minimum standards, and those minimum standards are outlined in Iowa Code, Chapter 132, which I've also brought copies that you can take a look at those as well. Those minimum standards are there for us to be able to regulate the services. So we're able to look at what they have available to them for resources and capabilities that meet the minimum standards set by the state of Iowa. And we can assist with technical assistance on showing the pathways, different pathways they can get to that end result. We can't tell them which one to take, but we can definitely give them a wide variety of options to choose from and figuring out, and sometimes it's piecing together different paths that definitely work with the resources that the individual service has available to them. Every service is required to be inspected at a minimum of every 3 years. So there is a 3-year period every 3 years that we are within each ambulance service within the state of Iowa we offer that inspection. And it's a great time to offer, again, technical assistance. If there's been resource changes, equipment changes, leadership changes, it's a great way for us to have that good communication throughout the year, every year, but then specifically at that time as well. The areas that services must meet, again, are outlined within that Chapter 132. Deficiencies, again, that are identified, they're given a time period to correct those. Again, they're within that 30-day time period. We identify those minimum standards. We do not prescribe how the services have to get to that end result. We offer options, like I was saying earlier, and those options vary from service to service depending on size, equipment, availability, staffing. And we do have, the beauty of the state of Iowa is we have that option of paid services, volunteer services, transport services, those non-transport services, those that are a mix where they're maybe paid Monday through Friday, such as Tipton. They're paid service during the day and volunteers at night and on the weekend. We are very acutely aware of the volunteer situation across the state of Iowa, and it's actually across the country, where over the last decade we've seen a decline in volunteerism in every aspect. It's become a societal issue, not just an EMS or healthcare issue. We're seeing it within the schools, within the communities. So we are acutely aware of the decrease in volunteerism and how that can definitely be an issue for a community. So taking into consideration what it is we do as a regulatory agency and how we look to the services to meet those minimum standards, we provide the opportunity for options for a service on how they get to that end result to ensure that they're meeting those minimum standards or exceeding them if they have the capabilities. And in noticing the trend with Tipton, we have seen the increase in deficiencies since 2003 to current. We've seen the volunteer issues that we know that have been voiced as well here, are being voiced across the state. We take that to heart because it's all over the state of Iowa. We have also seen across the state that we've had services that have gone from being 100% volunteer services to beginning to augment staff with paid staff. So we're seeing trends in all different ways across the state, depending on what the area is able to provide and what resources they have available to them. And again, we provide technical assistance in the form of the options that we offer that can be chosen from or completely different from what we see, that the services take into consideration and provide their own progress towards meeting those minimum standards. In the past 3 years, we as the Iowa Department of Public Health, Bureau of Emergency and Trauma Services, have performed 970 on-site EMS inspections. And of those, there were a total of a little over 6,000 deficiencies amongst those 970. So that averages out about 6 deficiencies per ambulance service. So looking at that in comparison to what we have seen in the most recent Tipton on-site review, looking at those and seeing the comparison from a state average to what we are at locally. But again, even looking at that and knowing what the last report was brought to us from Tipton Ambulance Service, huge kudos. Again, we can't say enough of how proud we are of the fact they were able to resolve those deficiencies in under that 30 days, 21 of them. So that is amazingly hard work for a service, and especially one that has volunteer and paid, and looking at who's in charge of leadership and where leadership is coming from, and resources from the community helping with that as well. So that's an amazing feat. When looking at the deficiencies that are noticed within a service when we do an on-site visit, along with those deficiencies can also come penalties. So those penalties can come in a wide variety of penalties. It can be anywhere from a letter of warning to a citation and warning. A citation and warning cites for failure to correct a deficiency in the time frame that was outlined by the department to correct those deficiencies. And warned means that you've continued to have those deficiencies, even though they've been corrected once before. Then again, the next verification, those deficiencies are again there. And looking at those, there's a variety of ways that we can have, there can be a penalty for deficiencies that are noted during an on-site visit, such as the citation and warning, civil penalties not to exceed $1,000. There's also the opportunity to be placed on probation, to have suspension, revocation, or otherwise disciplined by the department in accordance with Iowa Code subsection 147A.5, parents 3. So when we're looking at those deficiencies, and we're providing the opportunity for technical assistance to correct those deficiencies, and the time frame in which the department sets for those deficiencies to be resolved, and then looking at the potential for penalty that is associated with them, or within that regulatory guideline of what we as the Bureau of Emergency and Trauma Services provide as a service for all EMS services across the state of Iowa. Ensuring that those minimum standards are met by qualified, authorized EMS services, by qualified, certified EMS providers to ensure quality care for our communities. Again, thank you so much for having us here.
No problem. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Michelle.
You want to ask a question?
Well, I'm just asking. On schedule.
Go for it, Brad.
Thank you. Up next, we have Miss Cindy Hike from West Branch Fire Department.
Like you said, I'm Sandy Eichman from West Branch Fire. I'm also a member of Johns County Ambulance, so I have two different things that I'd like to bring up to the council. West Branch Fire Tipton Ambulance is one of three of our service providers for our area. We have Tipton, we have West Liberty, and we have Johns County Ambulance, depending on what section of our service area. Tipton Ambulance, we've had problems in the past with long waits on scene. Our service in West Branch is an EMT level service, so it's a basic level service, so we can't provide the advanced care that the ambulance services that serve our area provide. We can do basic care till they get there, which for me, being a paramedic on Johns County Ambulance, is really hard to sit there and wait with people that might know waiting for an ambulance. It's gotten a lot better, especially during the day when you put on the full-time staffing during the day. Still having problems at night, and I can attest to that. Just last night working on Johns County Ambulance, Johns County Ambulance got paged to come to a call in Tipton because Tipton did not have anybody responding. We didn't get very far, maybe 5 minutes out, and Tipton had a crew that showed up to go on the call. It's something that we see at Johns County on a regular basis, not necessarily that we're coming to Tipton to pick up calls, but that we're tiering with them to provide advanced level care because they're working at the minimum staffing of the EMT level. So we're providing paramedic level care to people from your community, advanced care drugs, that kind of stuff, because Tipton at that point is running at the EMT level, so they can't provide the advanced care. I guess my request is we need to make it so that we get that same level of care around the clock. It's affecting your community, your family members, you yourselves could be the one that doesn't have the ambulance show up right away, or the ambulance that is running at the basic level and you need advanced level care and you have to wait for Johns County. We have an ambulance that sits at the Dodge Street exit now. Our call volume is gone through the roof. So we may or may not have an ambulance that could come and meet your ambulance because we have to cover our area too, and our call volume is up. So that ambulance coming even from Dodge Street, you're talking 20 to 25 minutes before we're going to tier with your ambulance to provide advanced level care, unless, of course, they're headed towards us, and then it can be quicker. But I guess the main thing is we just like to have consistency around the clock, and it affects you. I mean, I live in West Branch, so I got Johns County ambulance coming to me, but I've got friends and relatives that live in Tipton's response area. I'd like to see them have the same care around the clock. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Next is Miss Lonnie Cook. She is the fire chief and ambulance service director of Mechanicsville Volunteer Fire Unit.
Good evening. Mechanicsville is volunteer service. We have to date 222 calls for our community, and that's with 9 EMTs and 7 drivers. Very dedicated crew. In this last year, just to let you know that we have went to Clarence 23 times. We've went to Stanwood 25 times, and we've been here to Tipton 7 times this last year. We are very glad to come help, because someday it's going to be us that might need the help. When you have volunteers, there's anything can come up that can change the status of a crew. Just weather can be delays as well. I have a business in town, and just to let you know, out of that 222 calls, I've been on 49% of them, leaving my business as a volunteer. So we're watching what you decide to do as well.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to change it up a little bit. I'd like to welcome Miss Peterson. I'm up and talk to Miss and Mr. I'm sorry.
Hello.
Miss Peterson.
Phil Peterson.
We live 200 Sycamore Street in Tipton. This is a really emotional subject for me. I have a lungs of a 12-year-old. They're severely diseased on the top. If the ambulance crew can't come see me, like the last time they did on October 21st, I'd have been dead. I go regularly by ambulance, and sometimes it's straight out to the airport even, just to get a helicopter here to pick me up and take me to the university. I can say this last time they picked me up was probably the best time I've ever had help. My O2 sats were below 70. I think they were probably in the low 60s, I think is what they said. Brad came in and immediately put the O2 on me, put the CPAP machine on me, which is better than nothing, but I need a BiPAP machine put on me at that point because my lungs, the top seals off and we can't get air in them. But I was never so happy to see him walk through my door. I've had it before where we've had the ambulance show up and the staff, this is before Brad, staff not even bring a cart up to the fence. Now granted, we got a gated yard, but not even bring it up to the fence. They left it out in the ambulance. No oxygen, and came in the house when they knew clearly it was a breathing problem. With Brad, I can honestly say we've had nothing but good things happen. I can't, since 2003, they took me off of work for this issue. Without the ambulance here, I'm afraid we'd have to sell our property. I would have to move my parents, because Dad's also got a lung issue. Without them, we're not doing people that need them justice.
Well, I think it's just important to know, like she was saying, this affects all of us. You know, there's a lot of people around who think I'm never going to need the ambulance. But you never know when it's going to be your turn. But just having the comfort that I can be at work knowing that if she has a problem, she can dial 911, and the ambulance is going to get there, which has happened several times. The air care's taken her 3 times, you know, but the ambulance takes her to the airport. So I think it's, for this town not to have an ambulance service, one of the biggest mistakes ever. And we need to do all we can to make it the best service that we can have. So, I'd say no holds barred.
It does scare me though when we have times that are unstaffed or hard to get people to come in. The last time when Brad came, I was lucky. And I called during a time when he was off, and he took the call. So the guy goes a million miles for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Continuing, Sheriff Warden Wellington. Also in charge of this one.
How's everybody?
Good.
I'm not known to be a great speaker to start with, and Kevin was supposed to be here tonight, but he couldn't make it, so here I am ad lib. I haven't been completely released for my heart issue. I took a ride in the ambulance in October, and I don't take anything that I'm going to say as criticism, because it's not. I was very happy with the response time. I was happy with the care that I got, even though they were short on staffing that day. But there's been a lot of times when there's not somebody available, and like was said earlier, 20 minutes isn't uncalled of time to wait for an ambulance. When you're the people that's having the issue, or the responders, that's a long time. I don't know what the answer is. Just in my experience, my brother, he was the police chief in Stanwood in the 70s. The ambulance and the cop car were the same Plymouth station wagon. They had a light on top, a low oxygen, a few bandages, and a really big motor. That was the answer. Get to Cedar Rapids as quick as you could. Now, with, I'll show my ignorance here, but I know there's state mandates. I would assume they're federal mandates. What people are required for training, which is good. The quality of service goes up. But with what volunteers are required to do to maintain their certification, to get their certification, and then volunteer their time to take calls, and then when you're short on people, that much more burden on those people. The quality of care is wonderful, but I've wondered how there's people towns have been able to stay at volunteer services for so long. Well, again, nothing here is meant to be criticism. It's all for what they've got to deal with. They're doing well, but they're short on staff. Again, I don't know what the answer is. My dispatchers, when they get a call, it's a long time sitting in that chair waiting for somebody to show up. I've rode in Mechanicsville's ambulance. I've rode in this ambulance. And if I get Bennett and Clarence, I'll have rode in all of them. So I really don't know what else to say, but I know we do the right thing.
Thanks, Sheriff. Our next speaker will be Ms. Jane Case, Director of Cedar County Public Health.
Evening. As Director of the Public County, I'm responsible for the health of every member of the county. Prior to becoming involved in public health, I worked in emergency rooms for approximately 20 years of my professional life. So I've kind of grown up a lot around EMS. As Steve Mercer from the state kindly reminded me today, I've been around for a long time. So in the 70s, ambulance services were not that great. Receiving patients in an ER wasn't that good. However, we knew in the 70s across the nation there was issues with the EMS services. I mean, There were a lot of things written up on them, a lot of people did a lot of studies on EMS, and identified where it could be improved. And some improvements, luckily, have been made over the years. We're standing kind of at a point now that when I started, it wasn't so good. We have an opportunity here within Iowa through the Iowa Department of Public Health with the Bureau of Emergency Trauma System. Thank you. Close to the name of it, VETS. That we are going to be involved across the county, well, actually across subsections of the state, that we will be working together to find ways to improve the emergency medical system. Public health, hospitals around the area, not our hospital, of course, because we don't have one. Public health, EMS, emergency managers, environmental services. It's just a wide variety of bringing us all to the table so that we can start working towards looking at the health of our people in our counties and our regions and helping to improve that. And part of it will be helping to address the emergency medical systems. I think that, they're going to be looking at development of a system within Iowa. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of investment of a lot of, not just money, but a lot of time, a lot of good ideas, a lot of support within the communities. And I just wanted to share with you that I'm feeling very lucky to be hopefully at the tail end of my career as seeing something very positive come from this type of a system development. So we're just going to need support to get us there. I will tell you, when issues with local ambulance services started coming to my attention after I started working within the county, I brought them, because I do have a favor towards EMS, I started bringing them to the attention of both our advisory board and our board of health. And when the first time I discussed it with them, when I had a physician that works at a local clinic here, because I was kind of not expecting a whole lot of initial support from them. But when I was told that that physician had a patient in the office with severe chest pain, which is a symptom of having a heart attack, and they waited 20 minutes in the middle of the day for the Tipton ambulance to find a second person to come and get her. Didn't make that physician very happy. I think because our medical services within the county are basically EMS and public health. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Almost done, I promise you. Next, Tim Lott, Director of Emergency Management for City Council.
Thank you for letting me come to speak to you tonight about EMS. I think everybody knows that in the past, we've seen that the EMS service across the United States, so Cedar County and Tipton is no exception to what the problem is. And we have done a few things to try to improve the services because we see the decline, especially with the volunteers. We've added the EMD that helps the dispatchers to help a first responder to give the CPR or whatever medical it is through a system. We also took last year, Brad helped out and did a lot of work, is we put EMDs in every one of the sheriff's cars because we know the response time. So we went and bought 21 of those EMDs and put them in the law enforcement car because it does take time. Tipton is no different than any of the rest of them. We're short. And the big challenge you have is, what do you do about it? And I don't have the answer, unlike the sheriff. If we had the answer, we'd be pushing it. Dollars are tight. 911, which is part of this. If you know the numbers, we don't take in enough money to pay for 911. Every time someone calls 911, that call costs in this county $40.43. That's a lot of money. The statewide 911, which we're working with the legislator, there's a $90 million a year shortage. The taxpayers are picking that up. $90 million just in the 911, and that's not counting the EMS service, the dispatch. So as we're going along, we're talking about consolidating to reduce that cost. And we're looking and working with the legislator to do that. And I understand as we move forward, the cost is going to be a big issue you got to think about. But as we consolidate, and we'll do it through technology at first, the one thing we got to think about as a community, will the emergency responders that come here, if we don't have an EMS, know the area? Will they know how to get to the people? And what is the response time going to be? People got to realize, and they don't want to hear this. If you're having a heart attack, do you want to hear about one of the 45-minute response times? And when you're short on the EMS personnel, and believe me, they work hard. They take hours. They get up in the middle of the night, but they still have a family. We can't expect one person to work all day at a job and run every call at night. We've got to look at ways to improve our system. So I think you're seeing a theme here tonight. In the future, we're going to look at a different way to do this. Do we have to look at EMS not becoming a want, but becoming a need? It's something we have to have. It's not a luxury. I'm fortunate. I haven't had to ride in an ambulance. But I'm getting to be 63 years old. I know my time's coming. So it concerns me too, not only as the EMA 911 director, but as a citizen of Tipton. So it's something we got to work together on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, Representative Bobby Kaufman.
Evening, everyone.
Evening.
I know it's been a long night, so I will be brief, but I had an invitation to come and speak on behalf of Tipton Ambulance Service. I didn't want to pass that up. It's been an issue that I've tried to champion in my 4 years in the legislature moving forward, and this one I'm trying to help solve. It was truly ironic. You can't really make this stuff up. I was walking in a few minutes late, and as I walked in the door, an ambulance screamed down Main Street by the courthouse. And the theme that everybody's been talking about tonight is true, and that is that everybody expects and assumes that when you dial 911 or you call for the fire department, that a fire truck or an ambulance is going to show up, and they do a fantastic job of making that happen. But that's not always going to be the case. I am here tonight in support of the Tipton ambulance. I've visited extensively with Brad, support all the things that he's doing. And I know there's a lot of volunteers in the room tonight, and they do a fantastic job. But I think that's in spite of the system, not because of it. I think that shows the resilience that our volunteers, the dedication they have, and not because the system is so fantastic that it allows it. Well, what's the fix? Well, at the state level, there certainly needs to be work done. And I'm certainly willing to spearhead those efforts, but it takes time. Imagine how long it takes the 8 of you to come to an agreement. Now imagine there's 150 of you, plus a governor. And that's what happens in Des Moines a lot of times, where you've got, particularly, this is an issue that has political sides. You'll have a lot of rural Democrats and Republicans on the same side of the EMS issues, and you'll have a lot of urban Democrats and Republicans on the same side, because those are completely different service options when you come to like a Lynn County versus a Cedar. We've had some baby steps. We doubled the tax credit. It's now $100. Don't mean to be crass, but big whoop. $100 doesn't do a whole lot for a volunteer. And I'm proud that I was able to get that passed, but to me it just doesn't do much. There's been a change in leadership in Des Moines. That's going to hopefully stir things up. Not even talking about who's the majority or who's the minority. We had 28 people retire from both chambers and both parties. And so it's my hope that the new folks in both parties can work together to move this issue forward, because it's been something that's been elusive in Des Moines. We passed a tax credit for $50 and called it a victory a couple of years ago. That was nice, but it wasn't all that big of a deal. You know, you look at what they have to deal with: aging equipment. Volunteers are incredibly hard to come by, particularly in evenings, particularly on weekends. You've got people that have to leave their jobs, leave their businesses, and leave their families, and a lot of times that's not an option. And so my request to you tonight, and again, I'm like Warren and Tim, I don't have the silver egg, but I'm here to make you a promise. And that is that if you can temporarily, for these next couple of years, as I'm able to try to solve the state issue, help them get through this, help them make sure there's staff at night and on the weekends, so that nobody ever has to miss a call. I'm here to give you my word that I will do everything that I can to try and help solve it at the state level. And I hope that the new committees that I'm on will provide me a better opportunity. In the years past, I have not been on the Ways and Means Committee. That is the state taxing committee that would possibly be in line to help change the tax code and the essential service label. I'm now on that committee. And I know there's a lot of issues that come with Medicaid reimbursement for ambulances and for mileage, and that's a big problem. And in my oversight committee, we are intending on doing a lot of oversight into Medicaid this year. So I'm hoping to be proactive, but when you're dealing with 151 people and 151 different ideas, it's going to take me a couple of years. And so my ask of you is to support the Tipton Ambulance and whatever they need to maintain their services. Thank you.
Bobby?
Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
How far away do you think we are from making it an essential service?
I have been on the Ways and Means Committee for 3 weeks, so I don't know yet. But,
You know what?
but I can be a bit of a pain in Des Moines when I decide to take on an issue. And so while I can't guarantee that exactly is what's going to happen, we have started something that I think is important these last 3 weeks. We've started the EMS local firefighter, your volunteer caucus. And that was started by a Democrat and myself. Jeff Danielson out of Waterloo, Cedar Fall area. He's a firefighter and a first responder. And instead of EMS issues and firefighter issues and volunteer issues being a part of the giant melting pot, we're hoping that having our own caucus where that issue is all we talk about will send a clear signal, because there's, you go to every community, there's property tax issues, there's Second Amendment issues, there's early childhood education, all these issues, and EMS has for so many years taken a back seat. And so I'm hoping that with the formation of this caucus, and with me being able to be on the Ways and Means Committee, I would like to see a 2-year fix. I don't know, that is subject to change, and I can't tell you it's going to happen, but I can tell you that I'm going to push and do everything that I possibly can to make sure there's not only a constant funding source, whether that's making it essential service, or that's some help with the state-national partnership, but also making it more appealing to be a volunteer. Because right now they get a $100 tax credit, and like Warren has said, the training they have to keep up with makes it almost impossible for somebody in their 20s or 30s with a family with 2 kids and a job, and a part-time job, and mortgage. It makes it almost impossible to keep up with that. And so not only on the funding level, but also on the making it appealing to be a volunteer level, I'm hoping by the end of our 2-year term, they run concurrently, 110 days in 2017, 100 days in 2018. I'm hoping by the time the end of the 2018 rolls around and we're here in December of 2018, I can come before you and say the state has actually done something for once.
That would certainly help a lot.
Bobby,
Yes.
be a pain.
What's that?
Be a pain.
Oh, I will. I'm really good at that. I just couldn't. I could raise a lot of trouble not being on the Ways and Means. They're probably going to come to regret putting me on the tax writing committee, but that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's it for our speakers this evening. I actually would like to conclude this as fast as I can, because I know everybody's been here long enough. But any questions that you have for any of our speakers that perhaps you can get the answers for, I would call them all subject matter experts, so please take your shout.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Somebody have any?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So where do we go with this, and where do we go from this? 2 thoughts on it. I was once told by my mother that, Brad, if you try something once and it doesn't work, try it again. You try it a second time and it doesn't work. stop trying it the same way. It's the definition of insanity. We've looked at our system now, and we've tried the same thing over and over and over again, and we're producing relatively the same results. If you look at our schedule during the year, or during the month, you will see just a plethora of blank spots. I think something needs to be done with it. My old boss, Tim, to put you on the spot if you're still in here, well, he's already gone, poor guy, once told me, Brett, and I never understood it until I'm looking at it now, the point of government is to provide the services which the people cannot afford to do on their own that are necessary. We have an obligation to the community for which we serve to take this serious and go 100% with it. I fear that the route that we are on right now is not doing that. And truthfully, somebody's going to die if we don't change the way we're operating right now. We have had in the past month 12 near misses. You call that, we didn't show up for a call, we took too long to get to a call, or just something didn't go right and we didn't have the right provider. To be frank, I'm sick of hearing about those phone calls where we get those. It's unacceptable. If we're going to run a service, we need to run it the right way. And we can do it. I'm very, very optimistic about it. Our call volume is going up. Tim and I were just discussing our revenue. Our revenue has actually gone up as well. I think that there will be some need for the city's support, but the first step in our 12-step program for success is to recognize that we have an issue. And from there, I'd really like to challenge you all to consider how we can fix this issue. I'm under a large belief that we cannot put a Band-Aid on this. We need to look at the problem and fix it and be done with it. And at that point, step back and let this machine go. I'll bring about, at our next council, if you guys would like, a 5-year plan for where we want to be. My goal is, I love sailing. I hate sitting around on the water and just going up and down. That's what the service has been doing. Some people will say, let's just go with the wind and go downwind. Why not turn this boat around and put it right into the wind and really let this ship flow? We can do something out here, and the unique thing about Cedar County is there's a need across the entire county for better staffing. I suggest that we take advantage of this as a business opportunity and offer our neighbors the assistance they need during the day when they don't have staffing. Fall back on volunteerism on the weekends and evenings, but see what we can do to surge those high periods. It will benefit us, it will benefit the surrounding communities, it will improve the wellness and health of our communities which we serve, and truly how much better can we ask for out of that? That's all I have to say unless you guys have questions for me. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Brad. All right then, moving on to the second item, which is the
If there is no motion, then there is no action. It's just information at that point.
All right then, moving on to the second one, which is the claims list. Is there anything that needs to be pulled out to be discussed?
I actually have a couple.
Yes.
They're kind of on the same line, so I'll bring them both together. Martin Gardner for the old Legion, and McClure on our storm sewer updates. Do we have any idea when those are going to be presented to us?
I had asked Brian to check on that, and I'm hoping he's gotten some information on the sewer update.
It was up to me recently to get them MORs, monthly operating reports for the east of Union back to 2008. And I did that not very long ago, so they now have that as part of all their information that they're gathering for us. But I know after the first of the year, they were kind of waiting to get through the holidays and then set something up. So
Okay, I had thought a couple months ago they had talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about November.
I think we'll be hearing from them to start probably setting a date here real soon.
Okay, thanks, Brian. And the Legion?
Linda, Beck, and I were going to re-meet with the architect and revisit the space utilization that they had proposed, and that's been bound for the holidays too, but we had a preliminary sketch plan back that's something to discuss and review. That's about as far as we've gotten with it.
So we will be back with that.
Thank you.
Any other items? Is there a motion to pass this?
So moved.
Spear with the first. And McNeil with the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
All right, so that passes. Number 3, consideration of purchase for surplus AED devices for city facilities and vehicles. Mr. Ratliff?
I'm back. I promise I'll keep it fast this time. We've been given the opportunity to purchase some additional AEDs to be utilized throughout the city. I found a deal through Iowa Prison Industries to purchase AEDs for $100 per unit. A traditional AED brand new would cost approximately $2,700 per unit. This is a tremendous opportunity for us to increase the number of AEDs that we have for public access in the event of cardiac arrest. If you guys have looked through the agenda packet, you will see the statistics that show that for every minute that somebody's in cardiac arrest, their chances of survival decrease exponentially. After about 6 minutes, we are looking at the viability of the patient to be very, very little. Increasing our number of AEDs throughout this community would aid in that. Now, we just finished talking about our low coverage for EMS, so I don't think I need to touch on that anymore. But something like this would really help bridge the gap until we have emergency medical services on scene. We are looking at 15 units, I want to say, being placed. They'd be placed to ensure that there's at least one in every single city department. And then we'd also be looking at increasing some of them. Primarily, the largest increases would be with ambulance as well as with the electric department, since those probably are the 2 largest areas. And I'm sorry, the third one would be the fire department. The state legislation has allowed for fire departments to carry AEDs now to actually utilize it on patients out in the field. Additionally, to the $100 per unit, we'd be looking at an estimated cost of approximately $100 to refurbish them. That would include adding new therapy pads to each unit, adding new batteries to each unit, and then sending them through biomedical. I think this is a steal, to be honest, but any questions I can answer for you guys about that?
If we purchase those, will they be checked regularly then to be sure that they're always available?
I think that's the right way to do it for sure. When I helped with Cedar County, we put in a maintenance program, so every month, essentially all you have to do is go look for the little X on the monitor. These, I believe they say okay. If they say okay, you're good to go. If they don't, then we get them serviced immediately. And these units, they're not what we utilize here at the city. Instead of physio control, we're looking at Zolls. Primarily, the largest reason is the batteries they use. For physios, is a proprietary battery that costs about $250 per unit. The Zolls use a Duracell 123 battery, and to equip them with 10 of those costs about $10 to $20 per unit. So generally, that's what we see go first is the batteries.
Are these that are already reconditioned?
So every monitor, I went up here the other day when I was in Des Moines for a meeting with the state and checked on these monitors. These all look like they're from a VA in the past. If they serve with the units that we've purchased in the past, they're almost guaranteed brand new. They've never been opened, they've never been touched, which means they've never had any TLC to them. So we have to turn them on, throw the batteries in, then I got a contact at the University of Iowa who just turns them on and actually sees if they're zapping people, unless you want to volunteer for it. I think that they are a great investment, and there's 70 units available, so we'll have pickings, if you will, for just the best ones.
Is there any additional training that our employees have to go through to use them?
So any employee that's not currently CPR certified is always welcome to come over to our ambulance service. We have a large number of instructors on staff, and we can do that during the day. We won't even charge you because we're being nice. We charge $5 a card, and that's the cost that we incur from the college. After that, really, it's just any time that somebody has time to come over and use it. My next goal in our 5-year plan is really to begin doing some sort of public outreach program to teach CPR to the community. If you look at larger communities and how they're bettering health in response to cardiac arrest events, it's by doing that education with individuals. I was hoping not to do an AED program for another year, just to spread out a little bit of this pain, but we have an opportunity in front of us, and it is significantly less than anything I've ever seen to purchase them. So I'd rather acquire the units and get the AED education out there afterwards. And if you guys have any thoughts on populations that you could target right off the bat, I'd be all up for it.
Finally, just to make sure it's in your budget.
Well, the nice thing is that it's not in my budget because this goes to all the different department budgets. I spoke with each department head individually, and they said they could absorb the cost for the units they've requested in their individual budgets. The ones that are on ours, they definitely can be taken.
What is the battery life expectancy and the amount of the batteries? What do they cost?
Sure. Battery life for those, generally you see about 2 years and you throw them away. The thing that accelerates them are the temperatures. AEDs are, they like banker hours and banker heat. So they like to operate only on given hours. No, I'm joking on that. But they really like to operate under the temperatures of approximately 60 degrees to 101 degrees Fahrenheit. After those temperatures are exceeded or one extreme or the other, we see a decrease in shelf life for the batteries. They can go from a 2-year point to about a 1.5-year point. The nice thing is the cost of the batteries, $10 to $20 per unit compared to that $250 unit. Our biggest culprits in such a project would be any squad car that would put them in it or any of the electrical vehicles. But I think your garage is needed, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. Pads are approximately $30 to $50 per unit. If we wanted to go with a pad that tells you exactly how hard to push down on a person's chest and give you that automated feedback, they're about $120 a unit. I never use those, but that would be an option. Once again, 2 to 3 year shelf life on those units, as long as they don't get too cold or too hot. The problem is they freeze, or then they melt, and it's just icky when you put them on somebody's chest. So. Other questions?
All right, then is there a motion to pass or deny?
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
I would move to go ahead with the...
To approve?
Yeah.
Second. All right, Spear was the first and Anderson was the second to approve this purchase.
Spear.
Yes.
Leeper.
Yes.
McNeil. Booth.
Yes.
Anderson.
All right, moving on to the city council meeting schedule for budget prep, January through March. Mr. Long?
Delegate that to Lorna Fletcher. Talk about the schedule for budget, Lorna.
Anybody have any questions?
It's in the packet.
I think it was discussed at the last meeting about moving the January meetings to the 2nd and 4th.
Yes.
And I guess I would prefer that we keep it on schedule so that we can continue with the budget process. As you know, it's not a quick thing. And so I went back to when you have to certify and back into these dates, that would work best to get everything done. And if we need to have extra work sessions, then it leaves us those other Mondays open. And Pam had mentioned that the 22nd possibly, I think was that the date you were concerned about for airport meetings?
No, it won't affect it in February.
Okay. So that's what I'm proposing, and hopefully you'll consider these.
So to keep it, so to keep it on the same week.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Other than in March, go to the 3rd or the 2nd and 4th.
January and February is the same.
Well, yeah, the same week, but January.
January's the 4th.
The 4th instead of Monday the 2nd.
And the 20th of February is a President's Day, it's a holiday for the city. So rather than leave it on, well, we could leave it on that day if anybody has, unless somebody has an issue, I guess. But we have to stay away from Tuesdays because of the fire department's meeting scheduled for Tuesdays. So that's why I asked about the 22nd.
And then February we'll skip to the 2nd and 4th.
No,
No.
keep
In
them
March,
March.
Yeah.
March, yes.
March.
Okay.
I would make a motion to make the dates.
All right, so Boots has made a motion to follow the proposed schedule. And Mr. Leeper as the second.
Leeper.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Lutz.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
All right, so that passes. Next up is the engineering contract with McClure. Prepare plans and specs for maintenance and repairs to the existing airport runway. Gentlemen, if you don't mind.
Good evening, my name is Jay Pudens. I'm a civil engineer with McClure Engineering.
So I didn't get your name, what was it?
Jay Pudens,
Okay.
from McClure Engineering Company. We're the consultant for the airport. 5 and 6 really could be in either order, but the idea here is Max and Tim reached out to us probably in October. It was after the Iowa DOT did their annual inspection of the runway and whatnot to see how things were looking. There were some cracks that were noted, that there was grass growing in, and they noted that and said, this would be a good idea to fix these to prolong prolong the life of the pavement. So in talking with Max and Tim, Max reached out to a local contractor who gave a bid for a price that was sent in.
$60,000 with Klusner Construction, who I'm sure you're familiar with. They do a lot of work around town here.
And asked if there was an opportunity to get a grant for this. The state, over the last couple of years, has not funded any pavement maintenance projects. In the past they have, for whatever reason, and they're no longer funding those projects right now. So there's no opportunity for a state grant. There is opportunity for an FA grant, and the city currently has up to 3 years of entitlement funding banked up. And entitlement funding is every airport that's within the NIPIAS, which is what Tipton Airport was put into the NIPIAS back in 2009, I believe, when the airport layout plan was updated, is entitled to $150,000 of federal funding every year, which can be banked up for up to 4 years, so $600,000 essentially. If y'all remember, probably the airport layout plan was updated in 2009, and there was a new runway alignment that was proposed. And the reason that was proposed is because there are current safety standards that are not being met with the highway and then the entrance road. So Larry, I think you asked the question, why would the FAA fund a project like this when we've been going down that path? It's sort of uncommon, but there are times when there are projects like this where you're trying to maintain an existing pavement, knowing that the process is going to take multiple years in order to purchase the land, then design the runway, then build the new runway. If there's something that's going to prolong that existing runway, they will likely provide funding for that. Now, if you ask them to completely reconstruct the whole runway, which is a lot higher price, I don't think they would fund that. But if there are any other safety issues similar, something that's going to really help the runway, whether it's lighting issues or something like this project, they will likely participate in that. It sort of caught me off guard too, because I thought, no, they're going to want to keep us on the path of continuing to buy land. But knowing that that's stretched out for a couple of years and it may not have happened again this year, they were okay with putting funding towards this. So the three options were either do it on your own, where you don't get a grant, which is one of the options shown in there. Do it with an FAA grant, which is going to increase price because you have to pay an engineer and you have to follow all of the federal guidelines, which include following federal wage rates, which jack up the price of wages. And there are other federal guidelines you need to follow, which is putting together a construction safety and phasing plan. A lot more paperwork, I guess, that goes with the federal project. But the nice thing is it's 90% funded through the government. So instead of, we have it shown as $190,000 roughly project, of which 10% would be $19,000. And I laid out the third option, which is you can do nothing again, and the runway will continue on as it is, but when you have cracks in the runway, you get water in the runway, it starts to deteriorate more and more. So the third option is do nothing, and there's another airport that you can transfer the money to, which is, I think, what happened last year. I think Washington got the money. So, trying to think if I'm missing anything.
Well, this project is going to include a little more than just the cracks, too. They're repairing part of the taxiway that is actually deteriorated. And so for $19,000 of your money that you actually have to come up with, you're getting more than your cracks and your sealing. He's worried about frost when water goes down in between, and then the frost will heave the runway. We certainly don't need that. Our goal is to maintain it as safely and as long as we can until we can get it permanently upgraded. So,
That's a great point. So yeah, the contractor's proposal only included crack sealing and joint sealing, and I don't know if it was just for the runway or the taxiway as well.
no, the runway and the ramp. It was going to do all the cracks, but
so this is
this one's
runway,
including
ramp,
the taxiway.
and panel replacement for the intersection, which is in the poorest condition of all the pavement out there, and it includes restriping everything out there. So when we do the plans, if we decide, or if this, the city decides that we don't want to do the full project, we can bid certain items separately and not necessarily award the whole project. It just depend on how much we want to do. What is proposed to the FAA is all of what I just mentioned, and then that will set what they will fund, and then we can bid the project, and we'll design it, and we'll bid it, and then we can decide what we want to award.
Do we have lighting issues?
Not at this time. We do not. No. Every light out there works, as a matter of fact. We have through the summer, and they've been addressed, and everything is up to snuff at this time.
If not, we can add it in, can't we? The bids, for safety issues?
Well, a lighting project is a large project in and of its own, so if it does ever become an issue, that's something that would probably be a standalone project.
How long would this crack sealing and everything last? What's the life expectancy on that?
10 years is probably the high end, 5 years is probably the low end, so 5 to 10 years, just depending on what happens over the period of time. So it will buy you time on your existing runway. But the FAA is really cracking down on trying to meet the new safety standards, which was the reason for the whole new airport layout plan to begin with. But this will buy you time, so I'll say that.
Is there any other questions for Jay? All right, then I will call for a motion to either deny or approve a contract with McClure Engineering to prepare the plans.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Has there been any other entity other than McClure that has checked this out, and why do you just say give it to McClure?
McClure's the engineer, and they've been the city's engineer for a while, and it was the DOT that examined the runway and found these deficiencies and brought them to the airport's notice, if I understand that correctly.
The engineer, what do you mean, the engineer?
It's the engineer the city has employed for the last number of years for
Okay.
airport consulting.
Okay.
We're currently on a 5-year on-call agreement with the city.
Okay.
And there's
That I
a,
didn't
you can,
know.
I'm sorry?
I didn't know that.
Okay, so I think it was approved in 2012. And there are a list of projects that got included in that RF, or request for
So
qualifications.
you got till end of 2017 for your contract. Okay.
That's right, yep.
I didn't know that. Now I do.
I've only been with McClure for 2 years, so I didn't know that before I started.
All right. So is there a motion to approve or deny this?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Mr. Anderson with the first to approve this, and McNeil with the second.
McNeil? Booth?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
All right.
This is also pending FAA approval. They have to review and approve our agreement, which is going to happen as soon as we have what they call a pre-design call, which Tim and I are scheduling for this week.
All right.
Now it's the ball's in your court.
Well,
Go for it.
almost. The money first.
Thank you, Jay and Max.
Thank you. Thank you, Vic.
Let's do the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is the approval of the funds for that, which would be $19,055 from the city of Tipton to go towards the $171,000 from FAA funds. I do have another question too. What timeline are we looking at?
Yeah, there's a tentative schedule on the back end of this.
Oh, yeah.
So the hope was to get the pre-design call done before this meeting tonight, but just due to scheduling conflicts, that didn't happen. So this is the schedule is based on the schedule that we set out, but we're gonna have to work with the FAA to make sure that this happens. If anything, it might push the schedule up a little bit, but we'll do a day of survey here as soon as we get approved, probably beginning part of January after the holiday. We're trying to push just right toward 90% design, since we're gonna be identifying different areas where we replace panels or do crack sealing or whatnot, what was described earlier. And we hope to bid the project by March, and then come back in April to hopefully recommend award of a contract. And then grant applications are typically due beginning part of May, and then they typically award the grants by June. So right now we have what's called a go letter, which initiates the project to say the funding appears to be in place. Go ahead and start your design, get your agreement in place, set your schedule, and then once everything's designed and bid and you get all your bids back in, then you can recommend award of a contract. Then at that point you have all of your costs known, and you submit your grant application to the FAA, and if all looks well, they'll issue a grant agreement when they know that the funding from Congress is in place to do this work.
All right. Related question, Jay.
Yeah.
So then the contract is, with the winning bidder, if you will, is awarded contingent upon FAA grant funding, et cetera, all falling in place.
Yep, that's correct. So grant application is submitted. You don't sign the contract with the contractor, but you, trying to say things right, verbiage. You recommended them for award, so they know that they've been selected, but they still have to wait on FAA approving funding of the project before we can get under contract with them. Thanks.
Yeah. Nice, sir. All right, then, if there are no more questions, is there a motion to approve or deny?
I would make the motion to approve option 2 for $19,055.
All right,
I'll second that.
so Spear with the first and Boots with the second.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil.
All right, that's approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, so now we go down to the approval of a quote for replacement of interior pool lighting.
Oh, my God.
Thanks, Brad.
It is in front of you, I think 3 different bids for the pool lights and indoor pool. As of right now, we have 8 of our 20 lights out. 6 of them are valves and 2 of them are sockets that are bad. I think when we first started looking at this when Packwood was still here, and I think the bid was $55,000, just for $55,000 just for the lights. So they have improved in price. I'm not saying this is a small purchase, but the initial design has its flaws where the lights are at right now. We've been up there, and then the lights are on the ductwork. So during the winter time, it's saying that it's warm enough. It's not. In the summertime, it's saying it's too hot, so air conditioning is running all the time. So proposed lights are going to be lowered 5 feet, and then very more cost effective. We turn on and turn off whenever we want. And 3 has come up there multiple times, and done the research on looms, and this is the product they suggested. I think, I correct, 6 months ago it was like $50.
Yeah, well, I got that original quote, it was like $55,000. And then we did a different light.
The light is the same quality and everything for 35. And then I suggested to go with Roth Electric to do the labor. So the total was, I think, 37 something.
Can I ask you, Adam?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the lights you're requesting from what Josh had in his bid?
He did come up to me before I typed up and gave it to Tim. He brought 2 of his sales reps come up. He wanted to put up 4 lights in the indoor pool, and so if we didn't like them, then take them down. And I was weary of that, because basically putting them up and saying, now, are we gonna be charged for that? Are we not gonna be charged for that? I didn't wanna go that, this is, we know for a fact would work, and plus, I know it's a little bit more. It's not really, if you think about his whole bid and compare it to this as well as Roth, it's almost not identical, but, I mean, we know for a fact these will be. I'm not
There is a
saying-
difference in the lighting.
Yeah, different, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm not knocking on Josh at all.
No.
I'm just saying that this is, for this, I think for no, we'd be for sure that this would definitely work.
There are no other questions for Adam. I'll ask for a motion to approve or deny this request.
Make a motion to approve.
Boots with the first to approve this purchase,
I'll second.
and Spear with the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Beaver?
Yes.
McNeil? Boots?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Adam.
Adam. And the consideration of a drip application for fiscal year of 2017 is Beck.
Hello.
Hi.
I brought before you the commission did vote to accept this gift application through the fabric stasher. The problem is that there's no more money in this fiscal year, which I did explain to Carrie Smith. I have 4 other applications that are out that have not been brought back to my office, and I don't know, and I've not discussed this with the commission, if maybe there needs to be a point when these can be turned in to me instead of just randomly turned in. And what's going on is people cannot start a project without being approved. And because if they start the project and they've not been approved, then this cannot be funded. So the fabric stasher did submit this application. It was passed and approved by the commission, but there is no money in the budget for this. They understand this. They would have to wait till next fiscal year after July 1st. I have no idea how much money is going to be put in the budget. This past year, $16,000 was in the past. Lorna and I were talking about this too. $25,000 was put in. This is a very good program. And we had individuals today do our downtown walk. This is a very good program for Tipton and for the businesses. And I would hate to ever lose this program. It is the appearance that it gives when you're driving through our community, because people are taking care of their businesses and their buildings. You know, we have buildings that are very run down and they're going to be extremely costly. And we do have businesses that take pride in this. And they do need this money. I believe the total project is over $22,000, but the commission is based on, in this particular case, the square footage, which then the amount came to $3,782.50. They did not qualify for some of the things that they had applied for because they wanted new windows and doors in the back, and that can't happen. It has to be up front. With some of the qualifications of this application. So to proceed, I need to know how to approach a business, if this business can go ahead and go forth with their project, knowing that July 1st, they will be reimbursed this amount of $3,782.50. Otherwise, they are at a standstill. They have the option, of course, to go ahead and do it and then lose this grant. And this grant is to help our businesses. So this is kind of a tough situation here right now. I know in the past, and I was not here at this time, but Kevin Cochran, the same thing somehow happened that he did not get the reimbursement till after July 1st. He understood that. But he got to go ahead and fix his buildings. He knew that that money was going to come, and it did, right after July 1st. And in his case, it was $10,000. So it was a substantial amount of money, but he was fixing up several of his buildings. So I need to know how to proceed with this with the council.
What's the maximum they're allowed on the square footage? Is it
7,500.
And what would you say is an average of businesses that have done this each year?
Well, we awarded a business 7,500 this past year. Another business probably got close to 7,000, and then another around 2. So, which equaled to 16,000 total. That got gobbled up very quickly. And, you know, what happens also that I worry about is when we approve these early and someone is waiting for the next fiscal year and the money's already gone, you know, that makes businesses at a disadvantage as well. So I need to go back to the commission. We need to work on this one, but I need to go back to the commission to see if we really need to have some guidance as to when these applications, dates, when they can be submitted. This date to that date. Most grants are done that way. But, you know, it's going to hold them up a little bit, knowing that they're going to have to wait, but everybody's going to be at a fair advantage with this. Or they may turn them into me, but we're just not going to be able to act on them until the timeline. But I have this before you, and I'm doing my job by presenting for this business, and the commission, like I said, did approve this. So I need to know how to proceed.
I have a question about the way the process works. The individuals that own the business, not the building, but own the business, they're the ones that apply for this grant?
Yes, and then the building owner, like in this particular case.
Comes out smelling like a rose.
Well,
If they
but
get,
the
if they get all their
ultimate goal,
stuff done.
well, but the ultimate goal really is, and I've been in about every building downtown.
Yeah.
I don't think there's probably one that I have not. So the goal is we've got to maintain these buildings. And the goal is we want to have businesses in our community. And they can make money. And so I see it more as a win-win. It's a win for the business, and yes, it's a win for the property owner as well. It's a win-win, and it's a win for our community. Because if we look around, there's many communities that their buildings are empty and falling down or in dire straits. So I look at it more as a win-win. Because I do think that, you know, we want to help. We want to help our businesses.
I can understand that, but if I were a business owner and was renting the building, then I think the landlord would be the one that had put out the bid for having his property.
I can't tell you who ultimately is going to pay for the other end of it. All I can tell you is when a business submits this to me, they have their bids in. I don't know who writes the final check of the additional $18,000 in here. I don't know if it's the business owner, and I don't know if they're leasing that business for 10 years. I don't know that. I just take the application and make sure the owner of the property also signs off on it, and then I present it to the commission and then back to you.
Well, I know the owner of the business, and I see no problem with that, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to know how it worked.
Yeah. I can't
If
tell
I
you
was
who.
going to spend, if I was renting the building and I was going to spend $3,782.50 on that building, I would expect the landlord to reimburse me or
And I
cut my
can't
rent
answer that.
down,
Yeah.
one
I
or the
don't
other,
know.
until it was paid off. But
Do you know
that's-
how
that's
many
me.
you've done that are not owners of the building?
This is the first one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So it doesn't happen often.
No, this is the first one I've done.
This is new territory for the commission to do this way.
Yes.
And that's why we're gonna be drawing up new guidelines for this and addressing that issue. And I would say that 10 years ago, this town was looking pretty sad before we started the sidewalk recommissioning, and the business owners were not fixing up their businesses, but once we started this, it was contagious.
And I would
And
also,
when one neighbor starts fixing up, the other one feels his need to fix up too, and it's a win-win for the
it
city.
is a win-win. I also would like to point out, which was very beneficial today with the downtown walk-around, which I'll report at our next meeting. But a compliment to Tipton is, a lot of our business owners are young. They are young. And that says a lot for Tipton. Because often in many communities, they are individuals that are getting ready to retire or later than midlife. And we've got a lot of young business owners that are trying to make a living in our community and provide us a service in our community that we don't have to leave. So that also is a win-win. And I think we need to be really proud of that, because we look around at many of our businesses and you're going to see some young faces.
All right. If there are no more questions, we'll take a motion to approve or deny this.
I move.
To approve it?
I make
All right, Leeper has made the motion to approve it,
I'll second.
and Boots with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
All right.
Thank
passes.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Linda.
Then to our last one of the evening, the consideration and approval of a pump repair. Mr. Brennan.
I unfortunately had a submersible wastewater pump fail down at the East Lagoons around the first of the month. It's one of two, and it's a fairly large pump. We don't have a service contract with anybody, and I don't typically push those. But I do have some experience with MVP out of Bettendorf, Iowa. After we did some diagnosis in-house and determined that it was like a dead short, it was tripping the motors instantly. And this is a 60 horsepower pump, so it's pulls pretty good juice. That's 480 volt three-phase out there. But we got MVP in, and they pulled the pump and took it down to their shop in Bettendorf and got it on the bench, and they diagnosed it. And they got the pump to freewheel. They did tear into the lower bearing, and they found the bearing to be dry, which they found kind of interesting, because that should have been well packed with grease, and it wasn't. This is a sealed unit. It's not a maintenance unit. It's a sealed unit, so it come that way from the factory or whoever reconditioned it. They asked us for permission to go in a little bit farther and check the top bearing, which is a little bit more involved. And we approved them to go ahead and do that, and they got in there and they found the top bearing was pretty dry too. Good news is the motor's all right. They think that they can just get these bearings repacked and back in there and get it going again. The seals on the motor are pretty expensive. Brand new replacements are $2,500, top and bottom. They have a guy that can recondition these seals. They're pretty special applications, ceramic and whatnot. And so asked them to give us a quote so I could come to you guys and see what you want to do about it. Good news is, meanwhile, we're able to operate on the other pump with no problems this time of year. And knock on wood, that's a good thing. And so not a huge hurry to get it back in, as long as that other one doesn't fail. But that quote come back, and it's in your packet, for $7,442. And so I'm asking for approval of that. One difficult thing with this kind of situation is it's hard to get a competitive quote, because you'd have to go down to Bettendorf and you'd have to load up the 25 or 35 pieces of pump and take it to another pump shop, and it's just kind of impractical. So these guys bailed me out a few times over the years. Their work is pretty reputable. I know a lot of guys in the industry that use them. And so I don't have any reason to doubt them. I did ask them to give me, for comparison's sake, a price on a brand new replacement, and they about blew my socks off when they told me $54,000 for that pump, for brand new. So, but they think for $7,442 we can get it working pretty good and probably get a few more years of service out of that thing. So.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Brennan?
Are they gonna use reconditioned sealed bearings?
This proposal is to recondition those existing, I'm sorry, seals, recondition the seals
Seals.
that use the same bearings.
Use the same bearings, even though they're dry?
They think they're okay and they can repack them and put them back in, they think it'll be all right.
Oh.
So,
All right.
They don't give those things away.
Is there a motion to approve or deny this?
So moved.
To approve?
To approve.
Spear with the first to approve this,
Second.
and Lieber with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Thanks, Brian.
And now to the equipment committee report.
Can't let it be out
I think that was in your packet. Any questions on that? We had a great meeting with all the department heads and discussed the parameters of what we saw as immediate needs. 5 pieces of equipment kind of came into light. Of course, Councilman McNeil was there, and I don't, Kim, you got any insight, any thoughts on what you witnessed as we all got together?
I like Clay and, is Clay here?
No, he's not.
I like that service program and come up with, replacement and maintenance and it's all.
Clay did a nice job of explaining the process in Central Garage, which is under Public Works, of course. He's been in this business all his life, and he's about as good as it gets when it comes to fixing stuff, when it comes to understanding how to get the best deals for the city, short-term, long-term, and that's kind of the direction this is going. We did identify it as in your packet, those 5 pieces of equipment that we'd like at least go out for bids for, or find out some budget numbers, and we do have some of those actually. I haven't really brought that to the table yet. Just wanted to, at least initially, present this as our findings. Where we go from here is dependent largely on the money that we have available in that line. Talking to Warren about that, we do have some money there to deal with this, depending upon how much these pieces of equipment are going to cost us. So, I think initially we talked about a digger dairy truck that's high on the list for somewhere around $100,000 to $140,000. That's what, as a committee that day, we talked about. We know that the skid steer and the backhoe, those trades would probably together be in that $100,000 range. So, if we can get those 3 pieces of equipment, and then depending on how that all plays out and what's in that fund, we should start trading a couple of pickups, maybe one this year and maybe then going on to another one next year. Clay brought up a good point. He said, we have 7 pickups in the city, and if we could trade 1 pickup a year, if we could ever get to that point, trade 1 pickup a year and never have a pickup over 7 years old, that would be, we could buy them on state bid, and after 7 years, we could still get a lot of money for them. We buy, pretty standard pickups, 4-wheel drive, they're still worth a lot. Currently, we have a pickup that's 17 years old, we don't hook anything to it anymore because we're afraid the back end's gonna come off. And, that was not good. I don't want to be driving, but I really, I think there's an opportunity for all of us to put a lot of faith and trust in Clay's direction and his leadership in this area. So, any questions? And Tim, would you have you got some insight into how we proceed, maybe from your standpoint?
Well, just to reiterate what you and Tim just said, by setting funds aside on a regular basis and building up a reserve fund to replace this equipment, it puts you in a much better place. And there are funds set aside. It looked like we could comfortably attack these 5 units with the next budget year. And again, your observation about not holding on to equipment forever, because the ability to buy this equipment on state bid. I mean, the last time I looked at pickup trucks, 3/4 ton pickup trucks could be purchased in the low to mid 20s. Run them for 3 or 4 years and trade them in. The cost per truck is pretty low. I know there are a number of cities in Dubuque County that do that and are able to roll that equipment more quickly. And the same holds true for your construction equipment, your backhoe and your skid steers. Contractors tend to look for municipal equipment when it goes for sale because it's generally been taken care of and not so badly beat up as frequently happens with contractor equipment. So there's an opportunity here to get on a roll where we're actually taking equipment out and doing the work that you're supposed to do instead of fixing equipment. So I think it's a real positive thing to look at in this light. That's all I have.
All right.
Any other questions on? While I still got everybody's attention, the garbage truck is broke down. So, Clay's work, he's got some parts coming in overnight tonight. So that garbage situation will be, today's garbage will be finished up as soon as he gets the garbage truck back together.
Is it the truck or the arm?
The arm, Ken, yeah. The shaft on the arm that is the pivot shaft for the clam snapped. And after taking it apart, we think that might be a manufacturer's problem. So it'll be interesting to see what the new one looks like when we get it. So, anyway, probably what's going to happen as soon as we get that back, we'll do garbage, recycling, hopefully garbage on the north end of town, which is a day off actually for city workers this week. Garbage on the north end of town is probably going to be like it normally is on Friday. So hopefully we can work everything in yet this week.
So do you think tomorrow's recycling will be on Thursday?
We
don't,
I'm not gonna promise anything yet. Depending on when the parts come in. And Clay can get it back together. It's not that big a deal putting it back together. We just need the parts. And we'll get Roger out there as soon as it's back together, and he's gonna be working late a couple of days probably. So just be patient with us, we ask that. We only have one garbage truck, and we have no control over when it breaks.
How often do those arms, how long do they recommend you use that arm? You replace it every 5 years?
You know, that's, that should easily last the life of the truck. The unit is a 7-year, we plugged it in for 7 years as a lifetime. Some communities run them a little bit longer than that. That should easily last that long. We really think, and Clay can show you this, we think there's a flaw in the manufacturing that caused that pin to snap. It's an 1.5 inch pin that just, it shouldn't have done that. So, anyway, and of course Clay maintains that pretty well. So.
All right.
But anyway, we'll get the garbage and recycling, be patient.
All right, we need a motion to receive this, right?
Yes.
Is there a motion to receive this equipment report?
So,
McNeil with the first and Lieber with the second?
McNeil?
Yes.
Booth? Yes. Anderson?
Anderson, yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
All right, so that has been received and will be filed. Next up is the tax levy rate.
It'll be part of the budget discussion. Laura can have a lot more than I can.
We haven't gotten any of the valuation numbers yet from the county, but we need to have in mind what we're going to have for our tax rate, so when we get that, I can proceed calculating the tax, because that's a big portion of the general fund's funding.
Okay.
So I just asked Tim to put it on there so you guys can kind of maybe get a number in mind.
Can you tell me what it is right now, currently?
What?
The levy rate?
Yeah.
Where's the 81-cent standard levy?
Well, 810, we can't go above that, but all the others.
No, the city one, the one that we put on. Is that what you're asking?
I don't remember, Pam.
Okay.
It was 13 something, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I was trying
I'm sorry, I didn't even think to look at that.
Yeah.
Well, we can certainly pull last year's and
Yeah.
send that around.
It just would be nice, I can't remember, it was
right at $13 or just 13,
13.10,
15.
okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can't remember. I think we bumped it like maybe 15 cents last year.
I think you're right.
But yeah, we'll need to, if you can kind of think about it, maybe in the next meeting, we will have the information and get something started, so I can move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now to the reports. Mayor's report. I know nobody wants to think about Christmas already being over, but the head of the FFA said that they're looking at the first weekend in January, which is I believe like the 7th, to do their Christmas pickup around town, Christmas tree pickup around town. Yeah, the weekend of the 7th. And that was it, I think. Yeah, that's it for me. Going on to the council committee.
I was able to go on the IEDA walk, stroll around town, and it was really cold, but it was really interesting. And I feel that there was, and Linda will tell you all more about it at the next meeting, but it was a lot of really positive and good comments, I thought. I was glad to be a part of it.
Good, good. And the city manager report.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a brief update on the finance director search. At the close of acceptance of applications, we have 17 applicants. There are some very good contenders in that, good-looking contenders in that group, and they are from the area and the region, expressing interest in the role. So the next step is to get those applications out to the committees, and so we can sort them down to a first cut, and then essentially establish a date for the interview process. And I'm looking at something in the last half of January, unless we can get it pulled together before. So again, I'm encouraged to see the interest that we had from some really qualified folks, and we'll keep you up to date.
All right, thank you. Then department heads. And I do have a question for you, Steve.
Yeah.
With recycling, and I sound like Scrooge, but wrapping paper, recyclable or not?
Good question.
No, it is not.
No, it is not. All right.
Oh, it's not.
So there you go. Keep it out of the recycling. All right. And Chief Kemper.
Just an update from last time. We were going to have an audit of our files on Friday. Roxanne from DPS came and audited the files. She also went countywide. It wasn't just Tipton. And what she's looking at are the fingerprinting standards to make sure that the people that are being arrested are being fingerprinted properly. 99% of the fingerprinting happens at the jail, so they kind of take the brunt of the audit, and Cedar County does a really good job. Out of the Tipton cases that were fingerprinted, there was one that was missing one signature. Her big push is to make sure that the juvenile files are proper and fingerprinted. If a juvenile is arrested for something that's a serious misdemeanor or above, they need to be fingerprinted. The jail does not take juveniles. What we do is we give them a juvenile complaint and they're returned to their parents. Unless it's something really, really major, like a forcible felony, they would be taken out to the jail and we make arrangements with warrant on that. So nobody in the county has been fingerprinting their juveniles. We have the capabilities to do that. We have the fingerprinting stuff.
What was that?
So we also need a juvenile policy. We haven't had a juvenile policy. There's none in our policy manual. I'm in the process of updating our policy manual, and she sent me a couple different examples. So we will have a juvenile policy hopefully within a 30-day period. She'll send a report. She audited 27 of our arrest records. 2 of them automatically get dismissed if there's anything wrong. Those are just automatically dismissed. So out of the final 25, she looks over everything, and we know that no juveniles were fingerprinted, but we have a plan of action. So that was really the whole thing from the audit. Everything else looks really good, and she's a great resource. So.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Lisa.
We did the DOC testing on the Caterpillar. It passed. It had to do a minimum of 70%. We got an 80% reduction. The new substation batteries were installed. That was done last week. The guys have been busy doing all kinds of things. We're still digging, so I imagine we're going to be doing some more digging. So other than that, that's really kind of what's happening in the electric department.
All right.
Thanks,
Floyd.
Floyd.
All right. If there is no more, can I have a motion for adjournment? Lieberwitz first.
Second. Everybody with a second.
Boots? Yes. Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.